So I think probably a good place to start would be if you could tell me a little bit about your story. What's led you to create the social media mission that you're on? And just tell me a little bit about how this has come to be, because you're on a mission, it feels like.
Yeah, it's quite funny. I can't say anything was planned. So that's in typical ADHD fashion. It's just chaos. Things just tend to pop up. But basically, so through my life, I've been living with both ADHD and ASD. I never quite knew it, so I didn't understand why I felt certain ways and felt a little bit different to, I guess, neurotypicals. So once I finally got diagnosed, it was great. I was like, finally, I've got the answers. But in most places, there's a bit of a waiting process. So like 2-3 months, I had to wait about 4 months to finally get the diagnosis. And in that 4 months, obviously, I was learning as much as I could about it. Everything made sense, but I didn't quite feel comfortable enough to start telling my friends and family, because if I was wrong, then, you look a bit silly. So in that 4-month period, it was very, very isolating because you don't know who to talk to. It's like you've got this massive secret and no one to tell to. Well, no one to tell, which it's pretty draining, especially when you don't intentionally, but you start acting a bit differently because you're unmasking in a sense. You're trying to be nicer to yourself, but to others, it looks like you're going through something and you're acting up. So they start to get a bit concerned. So that was my process. And yeah, again, during that time, I would go on social media, find people to relate to. And I couldn't quite find men in their late 20s going through this late diagnosis process. So I just thought, hey, I'm going to share my story, put it out there. And at the time, my goal was, as long as one person feels somewhat seen and not alone, I'm happy with that.
And I think that is a great philosophy to have when you're setting off on a journey of anything to do with content creation or social media. And it feels like you observed a lack of people that fit into your age and stage and demographic in life. Like not many late 20s male talking about late diagnosis of AuDHD.
Yeah, so I think AuDHD is still somewhat new in the atmosphere. It's been
Can we
around
just
for years.
clarify what it is? Because I want to make sure that I'm getting it right. So AuDHD is a combination of autism and ADHD?
Both autism and ADHD.
Okay.
There's lots of different research. Some say it's separate. I've met some psychiatrists that say ADHD is part of the autism spectrum. But at the moment, the trending word is AuDHD, but it's not an official diagnosis. So you won't have a doctor say you have AuDHD. They'll say you have ASD and ADHD.
And ASD being?
ASD is the abbreviation for autism.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And to clarify on that as well. So I have autism in Australia. It's diagnosed off a leveling system. So level 1 is your high functioning autism. So you adapt well to society, whereas your level 2 and 3, they've got more severe issues.
Okay.
So in my 4 months of trying to understand it, I related to both the symptoms. And then when I finally met the doctor, he did the tests. My ADHD was more on the so this is another thing. My ADHD is more ADHD inattentive, which a few years ago, it was known as ADD. So it's not that hyperactive child. It's more like your quiet child. So I've just spaced out.
That's okay.
Oh my gosh.
So ADD, attention deficit disorder, you had that without the hyperactivity element?
To an extent, yes. So
to an extent. Okay.
Yeah. So Yeah, with ADHD, you've got your inattentive, your attentive, or your hyperactive, and some people get both. Where
Okay.
I don't know too much about it. I'm not a scientist or psychologist, but yeah, some people suffer from both hyperactivity and inattentivity. So that was my diagnosis as ADD. And to come back to that, when I was finally getting medicated, that's when my psychiatrist told me, when you take this medicine, your autistic issues might become more prominent. That was his way of telling me I had autism, which was a bit
Right.
bizarre.
So the ADD diagnosis and subsequent medication was then a conversation around that could influence autism,
Yes.
which then led you to go down that pathway of exploring a diagnosis of that as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And what sort of time frame did this happen in?
Pretty close. So the moment he told me, well, when he told me my autistic attributes would come up, I questioned it, saying, "What do you mean? Isn't it a separate thing?" And that's when he said, "ADHD is part of the autism spectrum, so you have both." So I thought that was fascinating, but I also went to see a psychologist, and we did a few tests, like written tests, questions, interviews, and that's when they diagnosed me with level 1 autism.
Okay. Okay. Can you describe to me what that felt like, receiving the diagnoses and then processing the fact that you'd had them?
Yes. So the whole journey, well, the whole timeline is a journey in itself. So I did a lot of, I wouldn't say self-diagnosis, but a lot of self-discovery.
Research.
Yeah, research in a way. So I was more prepared for it when I finally got diagnosed. But yes, when you finally have the confirmation that that's what you have, it can be pretty eye-opening and somewhat unsettling, because especially when you get diagnosed later in life, you finally have the answers. You spend your whole life having certain issues, wondering, I feel different, but I don't want to speak up. Otherwise, I'll get treated differently.
Right.
And then you finally get that answer, and all your brain does is just replays all these events like, wow, if I knew that at this time, life would have been easier. So it's pretty heavy stuff.
I can imagine.
Mm.
And I really would like to dig a little deeper into that, if you're okay with
Yeah,
that, and
yeah,
explore a
go
bit
for it.
more of what you went through, because I think people would really resonate with hearing your story, because I'm sure thousands upon people are experiencing similar things. When did you first realize that you were different in yourself? When did you feel that and notice it in your life?
You know what? It's funny. I was just thinking about this the other day. When I was younger, probably, I want to believe around maybe 10 or 11 years old, our school, for whatever reason, they had a set class once a week for recorder sessions, like, the flute.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes. And I could not sit through that class at all. They're kids, they're all poorly playing this instrument, and all that sensory feedback was just overwhelming. And from that day, every time we had a recorder class, I would actively avoid that classroom. That was the only class that I actively avoided. So I'd walk around school, go to the toilet, stuff like that. But as a
And
kid,
that
I
was
didn't
like
think
a
too much of it.
sensory.
Yes, it was my
Okay.
first sensory issue.
And was it like an overwhelm? How did it feel?
It's very hard to explain, but it's almost like, I really want to do a video for this, but it's it's so hard to pull off. So especially when you're receiving a lot of audio feedback. So, I'm talking to you, that's fine. But when you've got like 10, 15 different bits of sound attacking your head at once, it can be very overwhelming. I like to describe it as, this is probably not the best description, but say if as you're speaking to me, you're shooting me with a water gun or a hose, that's fine. I can manage one stream of water. If I'm trying to talk to you and
Right.
I've got 20 people firing at me with Nerf guns, water guns. It's a bit overwhelming. And at some point, you're just going to scream and say, I've had enough. And you're going to walk off to safety.
Right. I think that's a beautiful way of describing it. It's too much coming at the same time.
Yes.
Which then what makes you want to kind of run?
Yes. 100%.
Or get out of there?
Yes. It can be a very anxiety-inducing feeling, which isn't great. And not being diagnosed as well, it can lead you to thinking you're just this anxious kid because you don't understand what's going on. So that's where part of me would like to raise awareness to that. So when kids are in those situations, they know, I must have some kind of sensory issue.
And did it sort of carry on from there? Did you start to notice more and more sensory challenges or anxiety related challenges?
I did have quite a bit of anxiety. I was always trying to fit in a way, but I managed it pretty well growing up. My year, so I'm born 1997, my year group was the year where the school first started implementing, once you're born past June, you're put into the lower year group, I believe.
Right.
I'm not sure what the name for that is called, but because of that, my year group was maximum like 30 kids. So up until high school, I think there was about 10 of us left. So because of that, I think I wasn't exposed to too many issues. But once I, started going through life, trying all these different jobs, that's when I got more experience on it.
And what did you start experiencing as you started going out into the big wide world?
My main issue has always been sound. So weirdly enough, I do enjoy my EDM, like my electronic music, dubstep, all that stuff. And in a way, when that music is loud, it tends to drown out all the other surrounding noise. So you don't think about it as much. So most of my life, I was just cranking, dance music, house music, all that stuff, and it drowned out all the noise. It wasn't until, I think what really inspired me to get checked out was when I was at work, probably, I want to say 3 years ago. There was a few incidents where I'd just be working, because I work in construction, and we'd have a debrief, and I'd be talking to one person, and then 2, 3, 4 people would try talking to me at once. Some would be serious, some would be banter. And I'd get overwhelmed. I'd be like, all right, just shut up. And I'd walk off. And to them, they're just like, what's your problem? And it wasn't until one of those workers jokingly said, oh, are you autistic? Or something like that. And I was like, don't know. I've never really considered that before. No one's really educated me on what autism is. Just going through school, all you hear is, oh, that kid's autistic. And from there, everyone's like, oh, that's it. They just look at him differently because he's autistic, but they don't actually know what autism is, which essentially, from my understanding, is just different brain wiring.
And so did you find other social situations, friendships, romantic relationships, family relationships, did you find those difficult in some ways, or was it specifically when you were overloaded with a lot going on in one moment?
It was definitely the overload. So as I entered adulthood, started going out drinking, especially, it's so funny thinking about it. But yeah, every party I went to, when there's like multiple people, I would get very overwhelmed. And being a late teenager, I thought I was just very socially awkward and anxious. And because of that, I really tried my best to not be socially awkward. So I'd go out even more, exposure therapy, try and prove myself. But every situation, it became very overwhelming, and I'd increasingly get anxious, and I just never understood why. Especially if I went to a work party or just at a bar, stuff like that. You've got 20 people all talking, or even restaurants. Restaurants is a huge one, actually. Been a few times I'm trying to sit down, converse with a friend. All you can hear is, cutlery clinking, plates clanging, you got glasses, you got people cheering, you got the overhead music, some fans, stuff like that. It's all very overwhelming. But for your average everyday person, they're totally not affected by it. So when you're affected by it all and you're seeing everyone else act normally, that's when you start to question something might not be right with me.
Hmm. And what do you remember about how you felt towards those differences you were noticing and the challenges you were experiencing? Was it difficult for you to feel good about yourself? Do you think it impacted on how you saw yourself and your self-confidence?
Yes, 100%. There was multiple times I felt very awkward. I always wanted to be that, that confident guy who got all the girls, all that stuff. And then
Hmm.
anytime I'd go speak to a girl or anyone, I'd just be all in my head, wouldn't be able to think straight. And especially in those situations when you're in a crowded bar, I'll backtrack a little bit. So when you have that sensory input, your brain
Mm,
tends to prioritize what input it's absorbing. So it's trying to take in all this information. And because of that, you're unable to speak because your brain's too busy trying to pick up everything else. That is what,
right.
from my understanding again, is when you shut down. It's an autistic shutdown.
Hmm.
You just can't speak. You can't think of anything to say because you're too busy taking in this input. But again, not being diagnosed, I just thought I was socially anxious and had nothing to say. But when in fact, once I had some kind of stimulant, maybe some alcohol that numbs your senses, I could think a lot more clearly and I was perfectly normal.
Mm. So prescribed medication or alcohol would help that overstimulation, would it drown out or dull down all of the overload and all the noises and give you like a clearer mind?
Yes, yes, in a way. It's very funny. So autism and ADHD tend to clash quite a bit. So
Right.
funny enough, my doctor told me when you take your ADHD meds, your autism becomes more prominent. But when I took my meds, it also reduced the load of the ADHD, which made my autism a lot easier to manage. Because ADHD, it's
Okay.
more of like it's a nervous system reaction. It feels like your whole nervous system is just on edge, fight or flight.
Mm.
And when you've got that on top of your sensitive sensory issues, it's a lot to deal with.
And so I'm wondering then about whether or not, and this is a term I hear a lot, and I don't know if you use this term as well, but the masking side of things,
Yes.
is that when that comes in, when you're going through all of this internal stuff, which is invisible,
Mm.
most of it, and then you're trying to fit in, then you're going through this massive process of trying to filter out or figure out and then function. It feels that's where that masking would come online. I don't know if that
Yeah,
is
no, that
true.
makes sense. That's masking is basically what it is. It's you're just putting on a mask. So you're actually
Right.
freaking out, but in person, you're this happy person who's fine, completely fitting in with society. So when someone questions you saying,
Mm.
"Are you okay?" You say, "Ah, my favorite word as a kid, I would say, I'm fine. I'm just a little tired." That was my mask.
Ah,
I'm just
okay.
tired. But it would happen nearly every single day. If someone was concerned, I'd say, "No, I'm fine. I'm just a bit tired." That's it. Then they wouldn't
Mm.
ask anymore. Then they wouldn't have to worry. Which is
Hmm.
that's basically what it is. Masking is just putting on that front so no one else has to worry. But in doing so, you end up isolating yourself and you don't get the support that you need.
So your go-to masking behavior was to tell people that you were tired when you felt all of this going on.
Yes, that's right.
Mm. And did people start asking questions or pushing you a bit more on that and going, is it really just tiredness? Or was that all led by you?
It was mostly led by me. So
Okay.
especially when I was a younger kid, I did tend to have a lot more energy. And I don't know, it's hard to explain. Some days you've got energy, some days you don't. So most people don't really think about it. You ask
Mm.
someone if they're okay, they say, "Yeah, I'm tired." That's it. They don't have to worry about it anymore. So they won't really question you. That was never an
Hmm.
intentional method, but it's a method that I found that worked for me.
But nobody was more inquisitive. Oh, you seem to be saying you're tired a lot. Is there anything else going on?
Um, my parents definitely expressed a bit of concern, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Again, as a kid, I tried my best not to worry about it. So I'd further put on this
Right.
mask, show I'm actually fine when
Mm-hmm.
actually I was not doing so well.
Don't know if you've heard of the spoons analogy, but it feels like masking is about energy, how much energy someone with AuDHD or under the ASD spectrum, how much energy it takes for them to do something versus a neurotypical person. So there's this analogy of laying out spoons and how many spoons does it take for you to have that conversation? And a
Right.
spoon, I think, represents the energy taken. So if you've got 5 spoons and all of those spoons have been taken up by having that conversation, then you're instantly at a disadvantage. You've got no spoons left. And I may be paraphrasing that really badly, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it's like spoons for doing your daily tasks, like personal care routines,
Hmm.
work routines, etc. I think it's like, how many spoons have you got in a day and how many does it take up to do a certain activity? If you're out of spoons, I think that is basically you're burnt out.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. That's a really good analogy. I can't say I've heard that one before. Um, Funny enough,
Do check it in case I'm getting it
yeah.
massively
No,
wrong,
no,
but
that's pretty
I
good.
have heard that before. Yeah.
It's kind of funny in a way because I know a lot of autistic people will agree with me on this. Is we we tend to have a favorite spoon, which is usually the smaller one because it's more in control. You can get the nice amount, least amount of
Mm-hmm.
energy, and you've got more food there because you're not eating it all at once.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of funny way to look at it. Whereas most neurotypicals would be using a normal spoon, where we would use a smaller spoon, which actually requires more energy because we're digging and digging more and more. That's interesting.
I think it speaks to, again, the energy that it takes for neurodivergent people to fit into a neurotypical world, and that people that are neurotypical just make assumptions that everyone should just be able to do
Mm.
this stuff, like life, socializing and holding down a job and keeping healthy relationships and
Yeah, it's
managing
a
your
lot.
internal dialogue and all of that. And
Yes.
actually, we're learning so much more now that that's just simply not the case.
Mm.
That actually, it's so much harder for neurodivergent people to perform those tasks, especially in a world that is always reflecting and giving the idea back that you should just be able to do this without any effort.
That's right. Yeah.
Neurodivergent people aren't set up to win
Mm.
because the way society is. But what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people still have about AuDHD or ASD?
I would say not enough awareness or education about it. So the moment you
Mm-hmm.
tell someone's autistic, they are instantly like, oh, they're autistic, they're different. So they just look at them in a different light. It's all different brain wiring. It's not a physical difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the big issue is just a lack of education on it.
Okay. And how do you think that would change? What needs to happen for that education to be better and for awareness to be raised? What's not happening, in your
Um,
opinion?
well, I can't speak for most people. I have a few friends who are in the education department, and I am seeing they are starting to
Mm-hmm.
implement ways to help, not professionally, but help diagnose and identify who the autistic children are. But again, when it's a
Mm-hmm.
when it's a mental thing, it's very hard to
Right.
figure that out. Like when your friends are depressed, usually when they're depressed, they put on a mask to show that they're okay because they don't want people to worry.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very hard for anyone to see who is autistic and who is ADHD until they see them struggling, which most of the time, if they're good at masking, you won't see them struggling.
Well, that's it. If someone is a very good masker,
Mm.
then it's even harder to spot, isn't it?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
as the time goes on, say if they're, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, still undiagnosed, they'd be pretty damn good at masking, which would make it even harder for them to diagnose until they meet someone who's actually autistic or ADHD and they actually share their experience.
Mm-hmm. And it feels like, from what you said earlier about your diagnosis journey, that once you'd had the diagnosis, everything started to make a little more sense. And your research that you put in, that 4-month period of research, it felt like you started to have realization moments where you're like, this is what makes me different. This is the language I can use.
Yes.
It's not that I'm built wrong. It's just that there's stuff going on in my brain that is different to other people.
It's just that we're not, like you said, we're just not built for our current society at the moment. Obviously, our society is designed for one person does this task, they stick to it, that's it. Doesn't consider all the potential disabilities that they may or may not have,
Mm-hmm.
which we are starting to implement. You get disabled people with wheelchairs. 200 years ago, you
Mm-hmm.
didn't have people who had the wheelchair ramps and stuff like that. We're slowly implementing it. It's just taking time. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure if that was a good a good description.
I think it's a big adjustment that
Mm.
globally we'd have to make. Like, I did some research, and I think uh, the World Health Organization, I believe, estimates that around 1 in every 127 people have ASD, which roughly translates to about 62 million people
Wow.
globally.
Okay. Yeah, that would make sense.
I mean, that's a big number.
It's huge. I believe, yeah, from memory, someone told me it was like 30 to 35% people are
Mm,
autistic, which again, it's fine.
mm,
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, we're just wired a bit differently.
hmm. And how is it changing your life since diagnosis and your social media mission? What are you learning about yourself, about the world? Like, I'm so curious to know more about how this is shaping you.
Yes. So,
Because you had a video, for example, that went viral, didn't you? I believe.
yes, it's absolutely taken off. I didn't expect that video to go off. Um, sorry, I'm just blanked out again.
Tell me about the viral video first of all. Then, what was that? What was the content?
So the idea was I just wanted to share my experience with ADHD and autism. And then I came across a
Hmm.
challenge, which was just, I also wanted to work on my public speaking because being, being autistic, being put in those social situations, you tend to become more introverted and avoid socializing, which in turn also
Right.
affects how you socialize and your speech because you speak less.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so initially I started that content journey so I could also work on my public speaking. I started doing a daily public speaking challenge. It's called the Higher Up Wellness Speaking Challenge, where you have to speak for 60 seconds, unedited, and work your best to avoid any filler words like and, or, all that kind of stuff. And
Wow.
yeah, one of the topics I came across was that unmasking video. And funny enough, I didn't intentionally make the video more about autism masking. It was it was more so sharing my experience on how masking has helped me traveling, going to different
Right.
places. You you tend to be more aware of like what's dangerous, who's a dangerous person, and you can adjust accordingly. You can speak more politely. You can give them a bit of attitude. You somewhat know the right things to say. It sounds
Hmm.
manipulative, but it's more so it's a survival tactic. It's a way to ensure your safety in a way, especially if you're in a scenario where someone might be threatening you or have a weapon. You can somewhat de-escalate it in a way. So that was my take
Hmm.
on it. But yeah, it somewhat resonated and blew up the video because a lot of people resonate with that topic, having to mask their whole life in order to survive.
So that's what they were sharing with you.
Yeah.
Their feelings about how they also use masking as a way to keep themselves safe.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is right in a way because you're, like we said before, you're masking so no one checks in on you, no one raises any alarms that something may be wrong because you don't even know
Hmm.
if something is wrong. So why would
Hmm.
you get everyone all worked up if you don't know what the problem is?
Hmm. And so, how did you react to that video
Ah,
going viral?
it was very overwhelming. I didn't think anything of it at first. I did the editing, put in the captions, the title, and in the first 20 minutes, it absolutely flopped. Like I can't help it. I'm going to check the insights. Everyone was skipping the video. I was like, okay, that's all right. I'm still new, nothing of it. And then another 20 minutes go by and my phone just starts pinging off, just bing, 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 bing. What's going on? And then I'm just seeing the views climb higher and higher. I'm getting followers and followers, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it was
Mm,
absolutely pissing down with rain that night. So I couldn't sleep regardless. So I just kept looking at my phone. I'm like, what is going on? So I was working as well. I work away. So I tried to put the phone down, leave it. And when I woke up the next day, I I went from 70 followers to about 1,500 followers overnight. It was very overwhelming. And over the course of the
mm,
next 3 to 4 days, it just kept climbing and climbing and climbing, which it's
mhm,
very overwhelming. While I'm working, I'm also receiving all these messages, thank yous, and appreciation for putting it into words what masking is like. And it was
mm,
very heartwarming as well because a lot of people, they expressed the same shame that I felt of just not being sure who to tell, feeling so isolated, all that stuff. It was it was a lot.
right.
I'll tell you that. A few tears were shed, I
Mm,
will admit.
yeah. Well, it sounds very, very emotional and very
Mm.
intense, but not all negative or all positive, but a real mixture, probably.
Yeah, well, surprisingly, I didn't quite see much negative feedback. I think I saw one or two people push back, but everything else was just positive from there.
Perhaps more to the overwhelm, and maybe even like if you're more of an introverted person having all this attention, it might
Yes.
have been a little
Oh,
bit
yes.
intense.
It's quite funny thinking about it because being someone with autism, it can be very overwhelming having three to
Hmm.
four people talk to you at once. So to have 1,000 people all following you, you're like, what is going on? It's hard to imagine that. Like that's quite a high number. I see a lot of people on social media
Hmm.
say, I've only got 2,000 followers, 5,000 followers, but that's 5,000 people who are willing to follow you for your journey. I think that's such a feat.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Mm.
And so that inspired you to continue making content and want to start sharing more about your experiences.
Yes, yes, correct. So
Yeah.
I still wanted to do my daily speaking challenge, work on my words, and
Mm,
during that process as well, I've got people messaging me from all around the world. I'm getting a lot of attention from Canada and France, which is it's interesting because I'm hoping to go to Canada later this year. But
hmm.
yeah, you meet all these different people with all very similar stories to how they were feeling. And I think with all the positive feedback, you know, it's almost been encouraging because they're thanking me for
Hmm.
sharing the experience. It's encouraged me to just keep making content to help other people not feel as isolated. So the initial
Hmm.
goal was to make one person feel less alone. And now that's still my goal from here, from now.
Hmm.
I am considering a few things, but it's trying to implement it while I'm working at the moment because social media doesn't really
Yeah.
give you much profit.
It's trying to find a balance and
Mm,
the motivation and the energy to keep going.
yeah.
I would imagine that, it's all taking from your tank and it's just trying to find a routine that works for you.
Yes, I'm actually trying. Well, after this podcast, I will be setting a plan in place so everything works a bit more smoothly. My
Hmm.
previous swing, it was only yesterday I felt I was approaching burnout, trying to perform at work, trying to keep on top of some of these messages while also creating content, editing, filming, all
Hmm.
of that stuff on top of it. It's a lot to do in a span of 24 hours. I've managed to pull it off, but
Absolutely.
it can be pretty draining. So I think I need some better management of it.
What's your experience of burnout and how it feels? I'm really intrigued to understand from
Uh,
your lived perspective. What is it? How do you know you're experiencing burnout? What do you do about it?
I think burnout is just when you're no longer in control of what you're doing. So you're doing things because you have to do it. And it gets to a point where obviously your body wants to rest, but you're continually
Okay.
just going and going and like you're driving your car without any fuel. It's going to get to a point where something's
Mm.
going to just explode.
And is that how you experience it? Are there like warning signs? Do you feel like you're in a battle with yourself for rest versus doing things?
Yes, I
Is it like an energy thing? Does your mind start racing more?
I think yeah, you're just more on edge, I would say. Your whole
Okay.
nervous system's just lit up like a Christmas tree and you're trying to relax, but you've got like 50 tabs just open in your head trying to figure everything
Ah,
out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I was pretty thankful yesterday. I was pretty close, but I was flying home. I did want to edit some videos, but it was a 2-hour flight and I just decided to put my phone down and I just stared into space for most of the flight home, funny enough. But after that I felt
Hmm.
brand new and fresh. But that's how
Wow.
I deal with it. I try to stay as present as I can, work on my breathing, and
Mm,
if I've got it on me, I'll get a journal, write it down, just get all the thoughts out the head, and that's my method
hmm.
for dealing with it. Obviously, other people they have more intense burnout when they're workaholics, they just can't seem to sit down, and that's when they end up
Hmm.
crashing and burning, going to hospital. I've always tried my best to look after myself. I've seen my dad. I, I wouldn't say he burnt out too severely, but I've seen the effects, especially of other people getting burnt out and how it's affected them. So I try to avoid it as
Hmm.
best as I can.
So breathing is one of your coping strategies,
Yes.
like
So
conscious breathing.
yeah, funny enough, being autistic, trying to fit in, you you want to understand how to fit in with everyone. So as a kid, again, I'm no doctor, but this is probably a good way to identify autism is
Mm,
constantly looking online on how to do certain things, how to socialize, how to do this, how to do that. And growing
mm,
up, I got very into self improvement. So I'd be, looking on the internet for better ways to do this and that, how to be more confident, how to have higher self esteem, be more charismatic, all of that stuff. And
right.
in that self improvement, you learn a few things like obviously fitness is a huge one, going to a gym. That's a good way to blow off steam. Meditation, that's a great way to just calm down. So I've always practiced meditation. I try to just do 10 minutes a day of just focusing on my breath, which
Hmm.
a lot of people struggle to do, but it does help in some way because it helps you to keep that discipline and stay resilient in those times where it can be a bit overwhelming.
I'm sure it is very difficult for a lot of people for a lot of reasons, but if you can find a way to connect to your breath, it's something that's there
Mm,
all of the time
yes.
for free
Yeah.
and can have a powerful impact on soothing and calming the central nervous system. So if you can incorporate it into a self-care routine, then I'm sure people will have a real positive impact from that, because so much of overwhelm and burnout can be that every part of us is ramping up, getting faster, and the
Yeah.
fight or flight systems coming online, etc. So connecting to your breath, although it sounds really cliche, is incredibly helpful.
It's incredibly helpful. Like as you said, it can sound a bit, woo woo, the typical monk just sitting there just om. It's nothing
Mm,
like that at all.
hmm.
It's literally just focusing on your breath. There's so many benefits to it and it's free. You don't need these meditation apps. It's good to get started, get a bit of guidance on what to do. But
Mm,
after a few sessions, it's pretty straightforward. You're just sitting there focusing on your breath, and then especially if you've got ADHD, your mind tends to wander more than most. And the whole
yes.
idea is, again, I'm no neuroscientist, but the idea is your brain tends to wander. Meditation, being present is you're becoming aware of your mind wandering. And then you say, no, focus back on your breath, get distracted again, focus back on your breath. And doing that on its own, it trains a part of your brain that helps you stay resilient. And it's really good for your discipline. It's helped me in the gym quite a bit, where when you're in those situations where you want to give up or something's a bit overwhelming, that's
Hmm.
the decision part of your brain that says, no, just keep doing it just a little bit longer. You've got this. And then obviously meditating every day, you fall into that habit knowing that just breathing, it's a good way to calm yourself down. I like to start my day with meditation, 10 minutes a day, depending on how much time I've got. Didn't get the chance to meditate today. But I have found when I do meditate in the morning, my brain is a lot calmer through the day. Even when something that's out of my control happens, I'm more likely to recenter and find my balance again without, being pulled from all ends.
So if you've started the day with that, then it's more likely that you'll continue to be able to reconnect if life sends you something that wobbles you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you start without doing it, it's almost like maybe it's more difficult to remember that you've got that in your toolkit, I guess.
I guess in a way, yeah. And funny enough as well, I've found a few times when I go a few days without meditating, I am a lot more sporadic and all over the place. So again, with autism, when you're autistic, it's always good to have a sense of routine. So when you fall out of that routine, everything else can get very overwhelming. So that, in a way, I've trapped myself into meditation, but meditation isn't something that's considered a trap. It's very, very helpful.
And you mentioned journaling as well.
Yes.
Is that something that you regularly lean into?
Yeah. So again, with the self-improvement, I like to journal. It's a good way to just, especially if you've got some, new goals for the year, it's a good way to just keep track of those habits. And I have found it's very therapeutic. There's a saying for it. What's it called? It's called, I can't remember what it's called. It'll come back to me. But the idea is when you're journaling, especially if you've had a very heated day, if you can, it's on the tip of my tongue. I believe it's
It will come.
CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes.
Not sure if you've heard, but the best way I can explain it is when you're writing down your day, you're writing down all the frustrations. It's going in the book. No one's going to see it. It's fine because it's your personal journal. But if you write everything down, I believe it's almost a subconscious thing where you're seeing the words on the paper and your brain can rest knowing that that information is saved somewhere else. And then there's been a few times where I've been extremely overwhelmed or, going through heartbreak. I'll write it down, write 1 page, 2 page, however many pages you need. And I will sleep like a log. It's probably one of the best sleeps I've had is after I journal.
Because you're taking it out from your head, putting it in the page, and the page is, or the journal's like a container, and then you can shut it, and then it's then separate from you.
Yes, you can look at it at a separate date. It's fantastic. Yeah. And funny enough, like I've got about 6 journals on my bed right now, but I've been journaling since I was 21. And every now and then I like to look back at my old journals, read some of the things I was going through. And it's pretty funny to read from an outside perspective. You're like, oh, wow, I can't believe I was struggling with that. But obviously in that time period, it was a big thing for you.
Yeah. Having that distance between the event and your reflection can be powerful to read back what you've been through and how you've grown, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is definitely in the self-improvement arena. But in terms of day to day, are there things that you notice about yourself with your ASD, which you find more challenging, that you have to pay extra special attention to, that you think, okay, this is something I have to watch out for. This is something I need to share with people if they don't know about it. Like, are you very much more open about what it is you struggle with?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll share whatever I need to. So with ADHD and autism, they tend to clash quite a bit. So it's a bit hard for me to identify which symptom is which.
Which one's which? Yeah.
But
we'll just talk openly about what they are, rather. We don't have to label them as one or the other.
Yeah. Well, so with my ADHD, my memory is it's like a sieve. I can struggle with remembering most things. I'll forget. I'll be in a conversation and I'll be halfway through it and forget one of the words that I need to use. Stuff like that, which is fine. It happens. People forget. But when you're in the moment trying to talk and it happens frequently, your internal dialogue, you're just saying, that's embarrassing. Like, people are going to think I'm an idiot, can't even speak properly. Or if they ask you a question, this is a ADHD thing as well, is we'll have the answer, but the moment someone asks the question, our brain will just switch off and we'll completely forget what the answer
Ah,
is. But
okay.
again, like, it happens with human.
Yeah.
Everyone does it. It's just more prominent with ADHD. And with my
Mm.
autism, I've always been very sensitive to, I would say, light, sound, and touch.
Mm-hmm.
Had Looking back at it as well, especially as a young adult, I did wear sunglasses quite a bit. You'd see all my
Mm-hmm.
photos. I was wearing sunglasses, even on a not so sunny day. That was more so because
Mm.
I couldn't hold the eye contact and everything was just very bright to me, which can be a bit unsettling. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you've seen, this is an old video I made, but one of the light sensitivities is having too many lights at once. You will
Okay.
hear, you'll hear in the, I guess, autistic community about the big light. So you might have like your bedroom light on, but if you've got like one heat lamp on, that light will be it will just irritate you in some way. I don't know if this will be bright enough. So I've got this lamp here. So yeah, like that. So this light's fine,
Mm.
but I'll
Mm.
try to talk to you. But all my brain is processing right now is this light just hitting me, which is, I feel like most people will be fine with it. But when you're autistic, it's stuff like that that can be somewhat irritating.
Mm.
And let's see, with my sound as well. Again, I can get very overwhelmed with my sound. So if I've got, this is especially in social settings or if I'm at work, if I've got too many people talking to me, I get flustered and I can't concentrate on whatever the topic is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're powerful examples. I'm sure many people listening will be able to relate to those.
Mm,
I heard a saying once, which was, when you meet one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, which is a saying to describe how unique and individual we all are. And that
yeah.
goes for people with autism and ASD and ADHD, that it's important not to assume that everyone with autism will present in the same way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like
It's
you're
autism's
describing
a
your
spectrum.
challenges. Yeah, exactly. So when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person
Mm,
with their autism,
yeah.
and then you meet someone else, you've met them with their presenting traits and struggles and cognition and etc.
Yeah.
So it's really helpful that people can tell you what their like challenges are, because they won't be the
mm,
same.
it's, that is a good example, but also you get that with most, I guess, neurotypicals as well. Like everyone's got their own differences. Someone explained
Mm.
to me, one of my followers explained this to me. They like to describe it as like dials. So everyone's got different dials for different things. But with
Mm-hmm.
autism, some of their dials are just turned up higher than most. So we might be all
Okay.
set at a nice 5, whereas there will be one dial that's set to like 11. Or a
Mm.
normal person might have at 6 or 4, but ours are just cranked up just a little bit. And that's what can make our autism a bit more prominent because we're just more sensitive than most.
Mm-hmm.
My best example, it's it's funny to most. It's funny to me when I think about it. Is so in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
especially working in the heat, is flies. If my followers see this, they're going to think it's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Flies are an absolute nightmare for me. Even after I told my mum I was diagnosed, she was like, "Oh yeah, you always got so angry with flies," and I was like, "Well, that would have been a good indicator." And
Mm-hmm.
my reason for that is, your physical touch as well.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So most people, obviously, you feel. I don't know if most people feel this way, but yeah, if you're talking, someone touches you, it's fine. But
Mm-hmm.
we're just more sensitive than most, so we might feel more raindrops, or if you're
Yeah.
if you've got like 50 flies in front of you and they're all touching your skin, that's 50 different points that are all touching you. Most people can ignore it. I can't seem to ignore it, which can be very overstimulating, especially when you're at work. You're trying to focus on the job and you got a few flies,
Right.
touching your face, or you got 6 black dots. That's another thing as well, because we're more sensitive to the input around us. So we're very easily
Yeah.
distracted as well. So we're focusing and we've just got one thing buzzing around here, another thing there. Our brain's trying to take all of that in at once, and it can be very overwhelming. And then on top of that, you've got
Mm.
noise, someone's trying to talk to you. It can be quite a lot.
Mm. And so you've said this quite a bit, but there's sort of more sensitivity. And I wonder if that's a universal way to look at it with neurodivergent people, that there is a heightened sensitivity, that
Yeah.
your brain is not as capable of filtering things out. Because I mean, right, as
Yeah.
human beings, we take in an extraordinary amount of information
Mm.
every second.
Yeah.
But maybe with autistic or neurodivergent brains, there's the wiring's different. So actually, all that information is like the dials turned way up,
Yes.
and everyone won't have all of them turned up. But you're describing, actually, it's very common for there to be sensory
Sensory issues. Yeah. That's,
challenges. Yeah.
yeah, that can be one of the more prominent things. I've seen a few times
Mm.
growing up. As you get into your mid-20s, that's when your brain fully develops. And during that
Hmm.
process, your brain goes through, I believe I'm going to butcher this. Again, not a professional. I believe it's called synaptic pruning, where you've got all these different
Oh yeah,
points of your brain. And as you're
yeah,
growing up, your brain decides what isn't needed anymore. Whereas
and
when
it
you've
like
got
trims it off.
trims it down to make
Yeah.
life a bit easier, so you're not as sensitive.
Hmm.
But when you're autistic, your brain doesn't quite prune it as much, which is why we're still more sensitive than
Ah,
most. Yeah.
okay. So that synaptic pruning doesn't happen as much. So there's still a lot more active.
Yes, that's right. Hopefully, you speak to a neuroscientist who can explain that better. But that's something I've
Well,
learned
I think you
recently.
explained it very well, but
Yeah.
I have heard that before, and it does certainly explain
Mm.
the heightened sensitivity from a
Like the neurochemistry
neurological
or
perspective.
neurological.
Yeah,
Yep.
neurochemistry. Yeah, exactly. Um, how do you find navigating the world of relationships? Has that ever been a challenge for you? Are you currently in a relationship? And if you are, like, does being AuDHD impact there?
Yeah. So I have had one long-term relationship, but because
Hmm.
I wasn't diagnosed, I did have my own issues, which would get in the way.
Okay.
I'd get very on top of dealing with my own stuff. I'd be dealing with her stuff, which is very overwhelming. You get frustrated. You tend to have a lot of fights. And
Ah, okay.
after a period, so I dated this girl between 18 to 21. And by the end of it, we both just agreed, look, it's not going to work out anymore, it was a very peaceful ending. I'm more, I would say, what's the word? At the time, I was probably more clingy than most. So it was a bit harder for me to go through that breakup, but I went through it. And then after that, I was 21 and I decided, look, I want to do my own thing, work on myself as best as I can. So when I am in a relationship, I'm more equipped for it and I'm not going to be a complete mess and a waste of their time in a sense. So that led me to, going traveling, understanding myself a bit better, meeting all
Hmm.
different kinds of people, getting those experiences.
And post-diagnosis, have
Yes.
you been in a relationship and noticed how, if that's changed for the better in terms of how
Uh,
you communicate, and if it makes more sense to people what you're going through?
to an extent, yes, I'm still sensitive in some ways, especially emotionally. But
Hmm.
yeah, I still haven't dated too much since my diagnosis. I work away, so it's a bit tricky to start a relationship. But in relationships that
Mm.
I have had, I have been a bit more equipped. So if something upsets me, I'll speak up about it, or I'll you know go to a different room, or I'll communicate with my partner, which is, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is key, is communication. 100%. You can't just expect
Mm.
people to understand what you're going through, because we're all human. We're all different, you know?
I wonder if it comes under the umbrella of ASD as well. Sensitivity around emotions. How
Mm.
does it impact on your emotional regulation?
Yes, it does quite a bit. It's hard
Okay.
for me to make the comparison because I know both neurotypicals and neurodivergents. Everyone's got their
Mm.
own issues, so it's hard for me to pinpoint
Mm-hmm.
how emotional I am. I'm definitely more emotionally expressive than most blokes, I would believe. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I never really fell into the idea of, oh, you're a man, toughen up, don't cry, all that stuff. And that's a big thing right now, is everyone's trying to say it's not weak to speak,
Mm.
it's not weak to show emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's always it's been a very interesting experience that way. Yeah. To answer your question, I think being autistic has made me more sensitive to my emotions. So
Mm-hmm.
being aware of it has definitely helped. So I know that an oncoming shutdown is about to happen, or I know why I'm so sensitive. Alcohol
Mm-hmm.
does not help in that sense whatsoever. I feel like most autistics as well, once they start drinking, obviously it dulls lots of your senses, which can make you
Mm-hmm.
more, weaker and vulnerable and have a breakdown.
Mm-hmm. I was curious to understand whether or not you found emotions harder to process or harder to recognize in other people, or
uh,
more difficult to self-regulate big feelings.
to an extent. So yeah, so most people would know autism to have difficulty with some social cues. When you spend a lot of your life masking, you tend to
Mm-hmm.
be a bit more aware of how others are feeling. I feel when you're more emotionally sensitive, you've experienced those emotions before, so you know what it looks like. So when you see others feeling those emotions, it's a lot easier for you to identify, if that makes sense.
Okay.
In a way, it's made us very good empaths, if that's the right word,
Mm-hmm.
empathy, because
Mm.
yeah, we've had the experience, so we know how to identify it in a way. So if we see someone in like the middle of a shutdown, we know, oh, they're not doing all right. Or if we see someone
Mm.
angry and they're about to explode, we can tend to read it better in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. In a way, we're supposedly bad with social cues, but at the same time, we've learned to read other people very well. So we know
Mm-hmm.
what to and not avoid in a way. And on
Yeah.
top of that, I think that's where the social cue dilemma comes in, because how can I explain this? In a way, we can tell when someone's bullshitting or just having small talk and they're not actually listening. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, we end up not interacting because we know the conversation is going nowhere. But to other people,
Mm-hmm.
that's small talk. So it just comes off as rude and like we've got poor social skills.
I've always found small talk to be fascinating because it's a game. It's a societal
Yeah.
dance that happens, and it kind of makes no sense, really.
I still
You
don't
know,
understand it.
hi, how are you? Yeah, good. Yeah, you. Yeah, good. Done. Or, oh, it's a bit grey today, isn't it? It's a bit wet. Yeah, it is. Oh, hopefully the sun will come out tomorrow, or
Mm.
whatever it may be. It's like, it's so, could be argued, so pointless
Yeah.
to do that. So I deeply empathize with neurodivergent folks who don't do that. And actually, I think it's really refreshing to not do that in many ways. Like,
Yeah. I think a lot of
it's just,
people,
you could just leave that bit out and be like, if you genuinely want to speak to somebody about something, you will. But it's because of the social norms and expectations that it's perceived as rude.
yeah, you know what, thinking about it as well, I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with having that silence in day to day
Mm,
conversations because they probably think if they're quiet, they will come off as autistic and they don't want to. So that's when they start doing the small
mm.
talk, which no one really enjoys small talk. Does that make sense? I feel like that's
It
what people
does.
are doing
Yeah.
and they're putting themselves in this weird trap. When actually
Mm,
I've spent a few times where I've just been with my mate, we're just sitting in silence and it's actually one of the most peaceful
yeah.
things, you know?
Mm. You don't always have to fill the space. But for autistic people, there may or may not be then this dialogue running in the background in their minds that is either saying, oh God, I should be doing this,
Mm,
or they may actually think, no, this is completely fine, or they may not even clock it because their brain isn't aware that they should be doing it,
yeah,
if that makes sense. It's
yeah.
going to be very unique for the individual, I guess. We haven't touched on medication, and I just wondered if you could just share your experience of what it's like to be on
Yeah.
ADHD medication, because it's a very controversial subject. I just want you to share your personal thoughts
Mm.
and how it's impacted on you in your life.
Yes. How can I explain this well? So, from my understanding, with ADHD, again, you've got your hyperactive and you're not so hyperactive, and it plays a lot into your executive function, which is responsible for
Mm,
all your decisions. But that's inclusive of like how your body even works. And with ADHD, it's your dopamine regulation, which is like your motivation. And with your hyperactive,
mm-hmm,
they've got too much motivation to do anything. So that's why they're very, all around the place, talk, 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 talk. Whereas people
mm,
with ADD or your ADHD inattentive, they don't have those energy levels. They're pretty lax, pretty
mm,
chill. And that's where the stigma of like a lot of laziness comes by, because they don't have that internal motivation to do certain things. So
okay.
um, it's a running joke with ADHD that if you sit down, you're not going anywhere because you just can't get up. You don't have the energy or motivation to get up. You're just sitting there in your head. You're saying, all right, get up, get up. You got to go, 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 go. And it's not until you have that secondary pressure that you can finally get up and go.
Mm,
So like when your alarm goes or you see the time and you need to be somewhere on time. So
yeah.
that's another running joke that ADHD people are always late because they've just got poor time management. But
I
with
think they call it time blindness.
time blindness, yes, I struggle with that a
Yeah.
lot. I was actually
Mm,
late to my physio appointment today because of it. So,
mm-hmm.
mm. But yeah, with the stimulant, um, you
Does
get
it help?
it's helped me quite a bit. But I think it's just finding the right one. Like you said,
Mm,
everyone's different. Everyone's got their own different levels. So
mm,
I have been trying to find the right one. I might be on the right one. So I initially started with so it's called Vyvanse, which is like a long acting prescription medication, and it basically helps you with your
mm-hmm,
focus. But my experience was it made me a little too focused. So whatever
mm-hmm.
task I would perform, I would just focus on that for most of the day, be that working, be that even sitting down or being on my phone. If I was on my phone and the medication hit, I would be on my phone all day, which is it's not ideal.
Okay.
But also in
Yeah.
doing that, it made me very robotic in a way. So because I was so
Mm,
focused on one thing, I didn't have room for anything else. So no, no joking, no talking. I could talk, but I
mm-hmm.
just wouldn't be as witty and playful as I would normally be. So my friends saw that quite a
Yeah.
bit, and they were actually pretty concerned. They're like, this dude's acting different.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm on my second trial of medication, which is in Australia. It's called dexamphetamines. It's a shorter dose. And basically, it gives me that small dopamine hit, which helps me enough with my focus and my energy, but it's not robbing me of my emotions in any way. But it's short acting, so it
Yeah.
only lasts about 2 to 3 hours.
Okay.
So it has
But
has
that's a
helped me
better
quite a bit.
fit for your chemistry and your makeup.
For me personally, yes, I have seen
Mm,
people with ADHD who are on the hyper side. Vyvanse work greatly for them because it slows them down. Whereas for me, already being a little bit slower, it slowed me down too much, and I was just
mm,
this soulless human being. So yeah,
right.
I'm on the dexamphetamines. They're helping me quite a bit, and yeah, I've noticed a lot. Even conversing, like so, dopamine's responsible for everything. So lifting your hands for how you talk, how you breathe, your speech is everything. So
Mm,
you'll find as well if you went on a night out, had you a few drinks, your dopamine hit. So the next day you're hungover, all your dopamine stores are gone. So you've got no motivation. You just lie in a bed. You don't want to do anything. It's kind of like that. So yeah, it has helped me quite a bit with my motivation and just overall sense of being, really being able to function better.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in my opinion, I'd rather not be reliant on medication. But for the moment, it's helping me quite a bit with work, which is it's ideal. Especially when you've got ADHD at work, you tend to get a bit more distracted and you get in trouble a lot more. And I know a lot of people do struggle with keeping a job because of that, because they just lose track of time, lose track of what they need to say to a client, or lose track of what they're selling.
Motivation.
Yeah, it plays into a lot of things.
I would like to ask a question I don't know if is asked very often.
Yeah.
But I want to know what you like about being or DHC. Is there anything? Do you celebrate yourself in any way as a result of neurodivergence?
In a way, yes. So like I said, I don't think our brains are quite designed for the way society goes. So my AuDHD, it's not the best for work, but it's what's given me my personality. It's given me my sporadic, goofy side of me, It has helped me quite a bit. Again, I think from masking as well, just the skill I've learned is reading people's emotions better. So if we're out and about and talking to people, I feel like I'm a bit more attuned to how people are feeling. So I can pull them aside, check in on them, and they'll be like, oh, I'm actually not doing so well. Just stuff like that. I feel like it's given me a lot of, I believe the word is emotional intelligence, which is, it's a very useful skill to have, especially when you're meeting people or networking. And being autistic, because you're so sensitive to your environment, you're aware when some things come up. So I'm sure it's a very good survival skill as well. I have heard the comparison that autistic people were probably really good foragers or hunters because they were more aware of their surroundings back in those days.
Yeah.
So there's definitely pros and cons.
I just think it's important that people are able to share what they celebrate about their differences as well as what they struggle with. It's nice to hear that there are parts that actually feel like you would not change, like it gives you your goofiness and your sense of humor, and you're more able to read other people's emotions and empathize as a result. So I think that's really empowering.
I think it's really, it's more responsible for just your personality as well. Like I've met a lot of hyperactive ADHDers who are just the life of a party because they just couldn't sit still. So they do silly things, just make everyone laugh, which I think everyone needs. Everyone needs to laugh. They can't just continue their life working the 9 to 5 because then it's depressing. You need that, that bond, that sense of relief in a way.
Yeah, many people I know in my life with ADHD, they are energetic and funny and goofy, and they're, like you say, the life and soul. Everything in life has light and dark. So the dark side of that would obviously be burnout and masking in a negative way. But actually that they claim their energy and their excitable nature, and they really wouldn't change that.
Yeah, I would just say they're just the life of a party. And because of their I guess their wildness, it helps with crafting really entertaining stories as well.
Sure.
My mum, she's got ADHD and she's very much one of those hyperactive people. She's very, bubbly. She's very fun to be around. Anywhere she goes, she can make a friend because she's always bringing people up. It's been one of her skills. And because of her ADHD tendencies of, maybe making a mistake or being a bit of an airhead, she's got quite a lot of stories, it's good.
Which I'm sure people find very, very heartwarming. Actually, it's not laughing at, but with. Like if somebody's willing to share their mistakes and their embarrassing moments, then people fall in love with someone like that, don't they?
100%, yeah. And also, I would say, I can't say for most of that being, ADHD or ASD, you tend to, because your brain's wired a bit different, you're very good at problem solving and finding solutions for different things, which is very useful
Right.
when you're at work. I've found it
Mm.
a few times. There's ever a problem and someone shows me the problem, I get this almost high out of helping someone. So if they come to me with a problem, I can think of a different solution. We'll do it, and it will actually work better. It's,
Hmm.
I'm not sure if that's just a me thing or a
Yeah. No, well,
neurodivergent thing,
even
but
if it is,
it's definitely helpful.
Eddie, I'm curious as to whether or not there's anything that we haven't talked about so far that is important for your story, what you want people to know about you or being on the spectrum, anything that's part of your mission that we haven't covered that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I might just trace back to um, just on the, I guess, the masculine side of things with emotion.
Hmm.
There's one concern that I do have, but this is kind of why I want to raise awareness to it all, is because we had this
Mm.
stigma of, because I even went through it, this stigma of, men unable to express themselves in a way. I feel like because of that, we've got a lot of men who are not diagnosed with ADHD or autism. So
Hmm.
because they're scared to express themselves in a way, it's very isolating for them. And they've got to deal with all of
Hmm.
this stuff, unable to talk to anyone. And I
Mm.
believe it's probably a very strong reason as to why you get a lot of men who are depressed and have been suicidal because they've got no one to speak to. So I feel like if
Okay.
we can raise more awareness to it and allow these men to, express themselves emotionally, they won't bottled up. And I'm hoping in a way it will save lot of potential lives.
So, encouraging men who are listening, if they are bottling things up, if they feel different, if they are experiencing things that they've heard today that they can relate to,
Mm,
you would encourage them to find a trusted person to share that with,
absolutely.
to
Or even,
not keep it in.
yes, the saying goes,
Mm.
it's not weak to speak. If you need someone
Mm.
to speak to, tell someone. And if your friends are knocking you down, find new friends because friends build each other up. They don't hold you down. And I know
Yeah.
it's, especially when you've got poor social skills, it's very hard to find new friends. But putting yourself out there is the best way to meet other people. Through my journey, I've found just traveling as well. You had that exposure therapy to meeting other people. And when those other people are also by themselves scared to talk to someone, that further makes your connection a lot easier.
Hmm.
And in a way, it just builds a better connection and you can understand everyone a lot better.
It feels like you're advocating for people who are feeling isolated and alone, especially men, to to take the leap of faith and to put themselves in a position where it might feel a little awkward, but share with someone how they're feeling, so that on the other side of that is a healthy, happier life.
Yeah,
They don't have to
just
suffer in silence.
like men's mental health is absolutely like mental health
Mm.
is massive in general, but even
Mm.
talking to a stranger is somewhat therapeutic. Just talking to people through all walks of life, they will share
Hmm.
their experiences, and that's when you say, "Oh, I've also been through the same thing." It helps you express yourself a lot further, and I
Absolutely.
think in doing so, that will further that will what's the word? It will further raise like or lot. I don't know the word. Raise men's mental health in a way, so we're not all having
Hmm.
this issue.
Hmm. And on that subject, what kind of support makes a meaningful difference to somebody with AuDHD? What do people that are neurotypical need to know? What actually helps someone in a sincere, genuine way that maybe people are not getting?
Uh, yeah, this goes back to a small talk. So I think a lot of people need to be heard, listened to, whereas most people they're comfortable with small talk. So they'll be like, "Oh yeah, hey, how you going?" And small talk is, "Oh yeah, my day's pretty good." But if someone says, "Oh, I'm actually not doing too well," they go, "Ah," and they kind of just walk off. I feel like if a
Right.
lot of people practice just actively listening, so listening to what
Hmm.
they have to say, maybe sharing some form of advice, having someone when you're speaking to someone and actually feeling like heard, it's
Mm.
I don't know the word. It's almost, you feel a lot better for it. I guess that's why a lot of people go to therapy. But even some therapists, they're very transactional. You'll go to a therapist and they'll be like, yep, time's up, done. You'll be halfway through pouring your heart out and they won't care. That's
Mm.
not how therapy should be. Therapy should be someone you can open up to and they actually make you feel heard in a way.
That you're seen. You're
Mm,
seen and acknowledged
yes.
and
Uh,
validated by having someone
Validation.
actually take a
Yes.
genuine interest in what you're saying. Yeah.
100%. So don't be
Mm.
scared to speak to people. There's been a few times where I've been, especially in my youth, I've always been an active listener because I guess being autistic, undiagnosed at the time, I was too scared to make a fool of myself. So I just listened to people's problems. And there was a few
Mhm.
times I remember this one interaction I had. I was at a festival and I met this group of blokes. We were chatting, blah blah blah. And as we're walking to different stages, he just started telling me all this stuff and he really opened up to me. And by the end of the night, he was like, I don't know where this came from. You're just so safe to speak to. I've never told anyone this in my life, which I'm sure he would have felt immensely better after that. That
Mm. Mm.
maybe changed his life. I don't know. But I feel, like I said, it's a very important step to just for someone to be there and actively listen and I guess give that validation to someone because you don't know. Someone may be going through a hard time, but they're just too scared to open up about it. That's also
Absolutely.
referencing to the depression mask as well. A lot of people, they're too scared to open up because they're worried either their friends and family either won't listen or they won't care or
Mm.
they just don't want them to worry.
Mhm. It's a powerful story, and I'm
Mm.
sure that that interaction really did have a massive impact on that person's life.
I'm hoping so. I did get his Instagram,
Mm.
but I've lost his Instagram, so I hope he's doing
Mm.
okay. Um,
Mhm.
and as to your other question, my mission. So while it's still early, I again, I'm just going to keep making content that's somewhat relatable to people. I'm only going to share my experiences. I'm not going to make up these stories because it's not a way to, I feel, make relatable content in a way.
Mhm.
But from all the people I've met, I would like to make some, I guess, some sense of community for people who either have ADHD or people who don't, just for everyone to, come together and actually have these deep conversations that are needed, or a community where you can find like-minded people because having these neurodivergents all message me, it's been very uplifting and heartwarming. Before I even made the page, it was very isolating, feeling like, oh, I'm alone.
Mm.
There's no one to speak to about it. So I feel like if we can, I'm no tech designer, but if someone can make a community that can bring people together, help neurodivergents find each other, I reckon that would be a beautiful start.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And you're part of that happening.
Yeah, it would be ideal. Yeah, if I could have some contribution to it. But being
Mhm.
being a licensed tradesman, I'm not exactly tech savvy. So, but
Well,
hopefully we'll meet the right people.
you're learning, and who knows who's going to come into your life as a result of your content that can help you grow.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully we can make some kind of change very soon. I reckon
Mhm.
it would be very good.
So, if someone's listening to this and they suspect that they might be on the spectrum and they don't know what to do about it, just in your personal opinion, what would you suggest that they do?
Ooh, yeah. See, it varies because, of course, if they've got their own financial struggles, it's a bit hard to find the right psychologist and psychiatrist to listen to. Trust your
Hmm.
gut. If you feel like you're a bit different to most,
Mm.
do your research. It doesn't hurt to have a quick Google search, maybe look up an autism test. That's not an official way to diagnose yourself, but it's a start. If you resonate with half the stuff that's on the test, it can lead you to asking the better questions and learning more about
Mm.
yourself. Or even, like I said, shared experience.
Mm.
What was the saying? Shared sorrow is half the pain, I believe.
Hmm.
So if you can just share those experiences as well, it's going to get a lot off of your plate and make it a lot easier for you. I would recommend just going into a library. I'm sure there's plenty of books around that speak about neurodivergence as a whole, finding some influences. That's what led me to creating the page. I didn't see too many male neurodivergents. It was a lot of females. I think that's also due to the fact females they're more open with their emotions, whereas men are more closed off. So if you can find the right influencer that matches you, definitely give it a go. Autism is quite the spectrum, so I'm sure you won't resonate with everyone, but if you resonate with someone, it's a step in the right direction.
It sounds like you're saying ultimately trust yourself and don't be afraid to research and educate yourself.
Yes.
Find people that inspire you to ask more questions and that are mirroring back to you information and advice that resonates for you, and allow that to guide you in your journey. It may or may not mean formal diagnosis, but it certainly feels like what you're saying is that you could start to feel better in yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Even if you're not diagnosed, if you go down the rabbit hole and actually understand what issues that certain autistic people or ADHD people go through, if you understand their issues, you'll resonate with it and you'll be less hard on yourself. You won't be thinking, oh, I'm just the village idiot that no one listens to. I'm so forgetful. I'm such a sensitive little boy. You're not. Everyone's different.
Eddie, I want to thank you very much for taking this time out of your day to speak to me about your story. I found your words to be incredibly inspiring. I'm super excited for you regarding your mission. And
yeah, thank you very much.
I feel that many, many people are going to connect and resonate with what you're putting out there. And I just want to wish you enormous luck and say, keep doing it.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate this podcast immensely. It's my first time on a podcast. So yeah, everyone don't judge me for this.
Oh, there'll be no judgment. And
I'm still working on my public speaking in a way. So I do tend to yap quite a bit, but yeah, very, very
that's
happy
the
to be
other thing
here.
I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Knowing that you've done so much work, I just want to say that you've smashed it, and you talk very, very well. Keep doing that, because you're on to a good thing.
I'm hoping so too. I'm expecting quite the shift in energy this year. So yeah, it's gonna be a big change, definitely.
And I'll keep watching. I'll keep following, and so good luck with everything.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Matt.